Good morning, listeners. Welcome to Spice FM. You're listening to Ammar, currently without Jalf, but I'm hoping that he will be here shortly. I'm admiring the what would appear to be interference on this camera, which I don't know why I get that. Does that help? Think so? No. Anyway, welcome to Show Business right here. We've got a fantastic show lined up for you, and we've got an extra special guest joining us later on in the show, Chris from Beetroot, and we're going to sort of share some of the incredible work that Beetroot and Therapy Audit are doing within the health sector and the digital transformation they offer to make patients and patient care better. Anyway, I'm not going to talk too much about Chris. He can do that himself. It's Friday, the 22nd of April, and you're listening to Ammar live on Spice FM. Each week, we bring you some news, views, and one or two clues from the business world, and Asian Business Connections aims to connect, support, and promote the Asian and wider communities. So whether you have an existing business, want to start a business, or just want to talk business, we can help. Gosh, it feels as if it's been years since we were last here. Obviously, last week it was Good Friday and the Easter weekend, although we sadly didn't get connected, but we are here today. And I hope you've all had a restful and peaceful Easter, particularly those of you who have been celebrating. So it was an incredible collection of religious events across a whole range of major religions, with billions of people participating in Ramzan. So Ramzan Mubarak for everybody who was fasting. There was Easter, so everybody sort of celebrating Easter and the Prophet Jesus. There was Vaisakhi, which is a Sikh celebration. And then the Jewish festival of Passover, where prophets Jacob and Moses were recognized for what they had done. So it's I love that. And I think it's a really big deal, as I was reflecting on the importance of religion and how I admire the premise of religion, and how, ultimately having hope is almost, if I was to translate this into a business sort of methodology, hope is the vision, faith is the mission, and love is the value. And if you think about religion, it's an incredible opportunity for people to come together. And I imagine that the premise behind every single religion is not dissimilar to all of the religions that exist. And ultimately, that is blind faith, right? Sort of believing in something so strongly that it compels you to action, and it's blind faith, because obviously nobody other than the prophets have seen or spoken to God. Yet billions of people across the world devote their lives, or sort of significantly recognize and appreciate God in all of their forms as they exist. And I think that's beautiful. I think that's really wonderful, because if you truly understand and appreciate religion, I am of the view, and this is purely my view, so obviously I'm going to talk about religion, I'm then going to talk about football, and then I'm going to talk about politics. But in the first instance, given the importance and significance of religion and everything associated with religion, for me, I think it's beautiful what religion has to offer. And some of the challenges that we experience generally, because one of the things that religion has done, or in my view, was helps bring people together, give them a common purpose, and give them a rule book of how to live their lives. And ultimately, I'm of the view there isn't any religion that suggests or encourages people to kill one another. And anyone interpreting that, as far as I'm concerned, is wrong. The fact of the matter is, each and every religion that I'm aware of provides guidance on how you should dedicate and devote your life, how you should care for one another, how you should love one another, how you should support one another, how you should make sure people don't go hungry, people aren't hurt. That is, as far as I'm aware or concerned, with the premise of religion. And it's based on a blind faith and with a clear desire and focus of hope. Hope for me is probably one of the strongest emotions, sentiments, words ever. Because if you've got hope, you have a future. And if you have hope, you hope for a better outcome. Anyway, I'm laboring these points. I was just overwhelmed and loved the fact that there were so many religious sort of activities, celebrations taking place, and for me, it was a wonderful and is a wonderful opportunity to celebrate the differences that we have, but bringing people together with common purposes. Okay, so let me bring up the show business script that I'm clearly not following right now, but Martha's kindly put in place, and let's see what's going on. So Netflix, so the headlines, Netflix is hints at sort of a crackdown as subscribers fall. So that's interesting. I'm just looking at my keyboard. I've just noticed that on my keyboard, the Shift key seems to have lost the top of the H, and it says sniffed. Anyway, that made me chuckle, because I had to look twice to see if someone had actually swapped my key. All right, so Netflix, what does that mean? Let's have a quick look at that article that we can't seem to get into. And Netflix, interestingly, has a couple of 100 million subscribers, and Netflix hints at password sharing crackdown as subscribers fall. So we talk regularly. I'm a huge fan of Netflix for a number of reasons, also because of their culture, how they established themselves, and their growth. And their business model is a fantastic business model. And when we deliver our programs, we very much share the Netflix business model because it targets movie lovers. It gives them on-demand movies and programs and everything else, and it's grown. And actually, at $6.99 a month, I believe it's gone up a pound. At $6.99 a month, it, as far as I'm concerned, offers incredible value. But anyway, let's have a quick look at this article, if we may. So Netflix has hinted it will crack down on households sharing passwords as it seeks to sign up new members following a sharp fall in subscribers. The number of households using the streaming service fell by 200,000 in the first 3 months of the year as it faced stiff competition from rivals. Hey, Jalf.
Good morning, Ammar.
Ramzan Mubarak. Oh, you look very well.
Well, just late starts Ammar at the moment. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm all right.
Yeah,
just,
good.
Missing you, missed you. You're getting. I devoted the first sort of 10-15 minutes to God.
Good.
And religion and all of that. So I was publicly encouraging everybody to sign up to God. Because it gives people faith, it gives people hope, and it gives people love. And I think from my point of view, religion is a perfect illustration of all of those things. And last week, it was Easter, so all the Christians and eggs and Catholics and everyone celebrating Prophet Jesus. Was doing so. Then there was Vaisakhi, which is a Sikh celebration, and then the Jewish Passover. So when Prophet Moses and Jacob, when they sort of ran away and the Red Sea parted, the Passover celebrates that over 7 days. And then, the wonderful month of Ramzan and the Eid celebrations that are coming up. I just think it's fantastic. And it makes you realize how important religion is and how everybody's faith, really gives them some level of direction, doesn't it?
Of course, I think people say that the world is increasingly godless and the focus on religion is dithering, which is probably true, but as you said, Ammar, there is still the fundamentals of religion there, and it's amongst a number of different groups of people, and I think for me, the moral code is gained, or you get the moral code that you live your life with via religion. So I think it still should be and should play an important part in society, in our daily lives, and I think the world would be a better place for it.
I agree. As in it, and this isn't about any particular religion. Naturally, obviously, we talk about Ramzan and Islam and things like that, but I admire, respect, and appreciate religion. Full stop. And I also note that those following a religion in its true sense, not in the misinterpreted sense where everybody should go and kill everybody or do stupid things, in its true sense of here's a moral compass, here's a code of conduct, and that we should care for one another, we should respect and appreciate one another, we should feed one another, we should not hurt one another, and that we should be living a pious and a proud life, that looks after family, friends, community, and appreciates a superior being, and that regardless. And the key thing for that, from my point of view, Jalf, is that in doing so, and if you do those things, you lead a nice, clean, sort of moral type of life, don't you?
I think, as I said, Ammar, that's the crux of it, and everything that you epitomized. You live with a particular code. You look after your neighbors. You're part of a community, and you work collectively for the greater good of society. Unfortunately, I don't think that's been followed in so many areas, because just to give I read somewhere, just to give an example, and I'm not saying that this is what should happen, but give you an idea of wealth. So, for example, Elon Musk looking to buy Twitter for something like $45 billion or something on those lines. Someone said something really interesting. They said that if you imagine that money was to be spread amongst every single human being alive, they would get something like $10 million each. Now, if you imagine, if the principles that we've just discussed,
that doesn't calculate.
It doesn't calculate right, but I think I thought 1,000 million is a billion, so maybe it is right. I'm not too sure, but either way, the point is that's just one man with his wealth. But if you imagine as a society, as a government, the amount of wealth that is there, and if there was a way of, like, we have a responsibility to pay a zakat, which is 2.5% of your income towards the poor. If things like that were given a little bit more attention and a bit more focus, I just strongly feel and believe that there wouldn't be any starvation in anywhere in the world. And I think it's quite poignant that in this month, where part of it is to give as much to charity and ABC and D. And I know there's so many great charity institutions that do exist in this country and around the world, but I think that a little bit more could be done, because, like I said, there is enough wealth to make sure that every single human being is fed and clothed and live a dignified life. And maybe that hasn't been done with the powers that be, and there is still all of those things exist in certain parts of the world, which we should all work towards changing in the future.
I agree. And all too often people do see the negatives of religion and misinterpret it, and people have a right to believe what they want. My point is quite simply the principles of religion, Jalf, and how they do provide a focus, a common purpose. It brings people together. So, the one thing that I really admire and appreciate is religion doesn't discriminate in its own sense, right? So if you're a Muslim, if you're Jewish, if you're a Christian, if you're a Catholic, it doesn't matter what color you are, doesn't matter how big or small you are, it doesn't matter whether you're abled or disabled, it doesn't, all of these things don't matter. What matters is very much you follow a code of conduct. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And I think, just reflecting over the last few weeks and this week and, excuse me, the various religions, it's just incredible. Going back to your point, it wouldn't calculate because there's sort of 7.9 billion people in the world as of today.
Yeah.
So 44 billion between 7.9 billion doesn't equate to any billions whatsoever.
Yeah.
However, the 1% of the world population controls X% of the wealth, and if they, in their own right, distributed that, the likelihood is there would be no poverty, no doubt, and no droughts in the world. But that's just life. There's those that have and those that don't
Yeah,
have.
of course.
I'll tell you what, just looking at some of these statistics is incredible, is the rate and pace of population growth in India. Right? So if I look at, I'm just, the most populous countries in the world right now is China remains the most with 1,447,657, and is growing at a rate of 0.29%, and nearly makes up 20% of the population of the world.
Wow. Big country, a lot of people.
Yeah, there is. But if you then look at India, right? India has 1,404,000,000. So it only has 40 million less than China. And it's growing so China is growing at 0.29%, but India is growing at 0.95%.
Wow.
So 3 times the growth of China. And it makes up, and it's 1/3 of the size of China as well.
India as a landmass.
Yeah.
Wow.
So China is 3 times the size of India, but there's nearly as many people living in India as there is in China. Looking at things, and then America has 334 million. So the next country is a quarter. The next population is nigh on a quarter of India or China. India and China make up for nearly 40% of the population of the world. Just
Wow.
India and China.
I mean, they're huge, important countries that have come to the fore.
That's just incredible, isn't it? That there's so many people living in just those 2 countries. Nearly 40% of the world population lives in China and India.
Yeah, I mean, they're huge countries. I mean, what's your views, Ammar, on what's happening in Pakistan at the moment?
Yeah, it's very political, isn't it? I think I don't know if we did or didn't talk about it. I feel as if there's undoubtedly some level of interference. I've read a number of articles. The fact of the matter is, I think that if there is and was a vote and it wasn't rigged, Imran Khan would win it.
Well, of course, he would. It would be a landslide, wouldn't it? I mean, I think they're not gonna call elections, though, are they? Which is what they should do, though, because the amount of people that are out demonstrating or being part of the Jalsa that Imran Khan has been doing has been incredible. I think for me, from what I've read and what I've heard, he seems to be a very honest man, a very honest politician. And I'm not obviously politically inclined, but from what you hear is the people that have taken over his post, apparently they're on bail.
Yeah, they
which
are.
is just incredible. I mean, and out of the 34 people that are within their party, apparently 24 of them are on bail. I mean, is that the kind of leaders that you want leading the nation when you had someone who has a squeaky clean history in that context, leading the nation and trying to stand up to the powers that be? and he gets ousted out of power, which is very, very sad. One other thing which I felt really sad when I heard that people are turning up at Jemima Khan's house and Jemima Khan's mother's house to demonstrate against her. And there's huge crowds outside her house, and they're openly advertising anti-Imran Khan demonstrations outside of her house. And it's just ludicrous that they're doing something like that. And the event organizers are organizing something. I mean, what on earth has Jemima Khan got to do with Pakistani politics? You know, she's never been involved in Pakistani politics.
She's just, and you know, she's never spoken anything untowards about Imran and things like that. I just think it's you know, there's a whole range of factors, factions, military. Apparently, you've sort of fallen out with some of the generals, and they still control politics. But it was also because he tried to protect Pakistan. He's a very nationalist. You know, he's all for Pakistan. So it's like any Western country would naturally be sort of against some aspect of that nationalism, that sovereignty. And those people and individuals that you're making reference to, yes, there were, some of them were in jail, some of them were on bail. You know, there's been a number of alleged you know, crimes where they had through corruption took billions of pounds of Pakistan's money. And you know, if you look at some of the Sharifs and the Bhutto's property portfolio, they've got some of the biggest houses in London, in Dubai, in Switzerland. They've got hundreds of millions of pounds all over, you know, and it's like the wealth. How did you manage to create that wealth? There's a question associated with it. So all he's been trying to do is bring that money back to the rightful, alleged rightful place and space. But I mean, it's sad, right? In a world where, unfortunately, it would appear that truth struggles to prevail. You know, it's just going back to that godlessness, and that, you know, as in everybody's just eating everybody on there.
Yeah, I think look, there are scriptures that do say that towards not the end time, but towards the end of times, which could be, you know, another 1,000 years or 2,000 years, whatever it may be, but that this is what happens. People in power, they're not honest, and people that are honest, they're kind of ridiculed. So I think maybe we do feel that we are entering into that phase, because it seems to be that whether it be our leader here, who is constantly lying, and that's just evident. The first sitting prime minister to be is it cautioned or fined by the police, whatever it may be, but he's still battling on. There's another allegation now about they're looking into him, you know, lying under oath in Parliament. So there is so much going on in the world. You know, when you look at Joe Biden, he's the leader of the free world, if you want to call it that. Or he's the most powerfulest man in the world. And you know, I don't think he's fit to, you know, pull up his pajamas, because he suffers from dementia, and some of the things that you see him, you know, when he turns around to shake an imaginary person's hand and there's no one there. I mean, you would have thought that the Americans, the people, it's just not fair on the world to have someone who's clearly not well to be in power. And do they actually put them there, or are they going to do something about that, or do you know, 7 billion people have to accept that no, this is the leader of the world, if they want to call it that, the most powerful nation on the planet. So there is so much. There is so many issues with leaders. I don't think that they're leading the world with the right codes. And the worry is really, where does that lead to for all of us. I know that we're a business show, but if we talk about wider politics, it does affect all businesses. It's affecting all the businesses in this country. A war in Ukraine is affecting everybody at the moment, and I think the country is it's escalating. Inflation is on the rise, costs are on the up. People's purses are being squeezed because we know for a fact that so many people are complaining that whilst they've had pay rises due to minimum wage increases, which were about 10%, they still feel that it's not enough. So we do need some kind of a revolution as far as trying to fix all of these problems that are there in the world to try and take things back to, you know, where we were, which I've got a horrible feeling that we're never going to go back to post-pandemic world that we lived in.
No, we're not. And there's almost this vicious virtual cycle of events where people are still just struggling. Everybody's struggling. We have got a special guest coming on talking about beetroot and health very shortly, which I'm keen to get Chris to talk about him and his business and his business model around health and seeing how he's doing, because it's quite easy for us to sort of pick out and pick on the type of businesses that are struggling, which admittedly are the vast majority. And you're right though, Jalf. That part of the issue and challenge affecting everybody is how do they address some of the issues and challenges around inflation, around cost of energy, around recruitment and resource. The businesses that we're supporting, everybody is complaining about the lack of resource on one hand and how challenging it is. I mean, one of the tech companies I was talking to, they were recruiting a designer and had put an advert out for 20 to 25K. They got 15 responses, out of which only one had done any design activity.
But Ammar, if you look at 25K though, I mean, that's not even minimum. It depends how many hours they do. But if you do it,
no, it was on an ad hoc type of retained basis. So
I mean, we look at things when an average kind of person, you let's say the 48-hour week. I know that offices do work around about the 40-hour week, but in hospitality you have a 48-hour week.
Yeah.
And effectively you're getting paid 10 quid an hour. That's 500 quid a week. That's 26 grand a year. So the 26 grand a year, I don't know what the average income is these days, but the average income's got to be around about 30 grand a year these days, right, Ammar?
It varies, but yeah.
I mean, because the minimum wage, if you do 48 hours a week, you are earning 26 grand a year.
Not everyone does 40 hours a week, do they?
Yeah, but you've got the ability to do 40 hours a week and 45
48.
hours.
I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, if you want to, I mean, let's say that you do between 40 to 48 hours a week, right? And those that aren't doing 48 hours a week and having a bit of a moan that, oh, I'm not earning enough, well, maybe do a few extra hours. But the point is, if you are doing 48 hours a week, you can potentially earn £26,000 a year, which, that's not, that is around about 300, and that's not even £400 a week net though. That's about 1,600 quid a month, Ammar. And one person to live, their rent these days for an individual, you're talking 500 quid a week, 500 quid a month, sorry. So everyone's
more than that, to be honest.
Everyone's got at least 100 to 125 pound a week per head cost on them just for them to sleep at night in a room, one room, not a house, one room. Its average is £500 a room these days. So you take that out of the equation. I think the cost of living is about a third of people's incomes, just to pay for their rent and their bills. So you've got 2/3 left, a third for food and a third maybe is to pay off your credit card bills or whatever it may be.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy, to say the least. according to this, it is around about £30,000. There's some variables. According to the ONS, the average salary in the UK for the entirety of 2021 was 25,971. But with the UK's average full-time wage now standing at 31,000.
It is 31,000 at the moment, which is decent, isn't it? If you can work towards
it is, but it varies. So don't forget that's the average, right? There's at least 5 to 10k difference between the London and everywhere else. So think about the urban areas will be totally different to the rural areas. So the likelihood is you'll probably get paid more, slightly more, in Newcastle than you would in Sunderland or in Middlesbrough, or because of I mean, there were some statistics at one point where where we were expecting there's some statistics that showed digital jobs in Newcastle were the highest paid outside of London.
Really? Wow.
And it is. I mean, the amount of demand for digital jobs is incredible.
Well, that's a good thing.
No, it is. But the problem with that is that it then creates that additional competition, doesn't it? To the level of, if you're a smaller business and bigger businesses are paying a lot more, you're going to struggle to compete.
Yeah, of course. Well, I think that's just the market forces. I mean, I know that Amazon, they are paying something like £13-14 an hour to their drivers, and even to work in a factory in Amazon, I think that's the kind of rate that they pay, which does drive people away from other jobs, because that extra £3 an hour for them it's big money these days, isn't it?
Oh, it's massive money. It's massive money. That's the thing. It's crazy the level of jobs out there and what they are paying. Our guest is here, so let's invite Chris onto the show. Good morning, Chris. Oh, he was there. He's gone.
We'll wait for Chris to reconnect, and
we will. Yeah, no, because it's really interesting what Chris does. It's quite technical, but I'm very, very keen to share the work that Chris is doing here in the Northeast, and his medical technology company that's making a big difference. That is connecting in with regional hospitals and stakeholders.
I think in the interim, whilst we are
he's here.
Chris is reconnecting.
Chris, are you here? Hello, Chris. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good morning.
Excellent, Chris. We can see you now.
Yes, good morning. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late and I've finger trouble and goodness knows what. I'm here.
You are here. So welcome, Chris. Welcome to our weekly radio show on Spice FM. We are live. We're being broadcast across the globe digitally and on FM. So please don't swear. Not that you would.
I'll try and contain myself, Ammar.
Right. Yeah, so I've been talking a little bit about you, but thank you ever so much for joining us. This is Jalf, my co-host.
Hello, Jalf.
Nice to meet you, Chris.
A significant entrepreneur, one of the foremost restaurateurs in the world, arguably. and a wonderful friend. So, Chris,
Great.
we use this as an excuse to get together and have a bit of a chin wag, but also we've been doing this for about 12 years now. It is the most popular show on Spice FM. It's recorded and it's then broadcast digitally more broadly as well. So tell me, or tell us, Chris, a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why you do it, please.
Well, thank you, Ammar, and great to get this opportunity to talk to you and meet you as well, Jalf. So you must cut across me, Ammar, if I start talking too much. But I'm the owner of a digital health company, and I'll probably get the opportunity to explain what that is in a moment. But the company is called Therapy Audit, and we have a very, we think, interesting brand name of Beetroot. So we call our software Beetroot, and the reason we do that is because we try to demystify it a little bit so that people can, hang on to something that's familiar. Beetroot's a bit of a Marmite thing, though, isn't it? Some people like it, some people don't. I've been doing this for about over 20 years altogether. So I've worked inside the NHS in various capacities, but I've also been running Therapy Audit and helping clinicians and their patients over that period of time, and built a business in the process. And we have some very loyal customers. So it's been an exciting journey, Ammar, not without its challenges, as I'm sure you'll, both you and Jalf know only too well, and other business people out there.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I suppose it's wonderful to have you on the show and for you to be able to share the innovation and the support that Therapy Audit and Beetroot has to offer. I'm a huge fan of Beetroot. I love it. I thoroughly enjoy it, and having sort of built a relationship, Chris, around Beetroot, there's almost the health proprietaries or properties of Beetroot are quite significant.
It is a superfood, Ammar, superfood.
Superfood, and there's an argument of you used to say an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Well, there's now an argument of put down the apple and pick up the beetroot, because it's the future, is what it is. So tell us about the business a little bit more, Chris, especially for all of our listeners and viewers who would like to hear, well, what is Therapy Audit? What do you do? Why do you do it?
Yeah, why do I do it? That's always a really good question, isn't it? Because I think, again, I know the context of what we're talking about is entrepreneurship and running a business and what it's like to do that. Now, why do I do it? Gosh, I ask myself that every day. Why do I do this when I could have a job and I could leave stuff at home, couldn't I, Ammar, at night and not have to worry about it? The reason I do it is because I like a challenge. I like the satisfaction of creating something that has helped hundreds of thousands of people over the 25 years that I've been doing this. And I'll give you an example of that. I remember many, many years ago when I used to have to go and support the hospitals and the clinicians who were using our software. I remember going on a visit to a hospital and walking out of the hospital department I'd been in, and I saw, as I walked past the exit, a couple, a man and a woman, and they were holding a piece of paper and looking at it. And I realized as I went past, because I recognized it, not in detail, but I recognized it as one of the reports printed from our system at the time. And I looked at it and I thought, this is what it means to patients. This is what it gives them, information that they need to help manage their disease that they live with. So the way I got into this is a little bit of a story. Many years ago, I was friendly with a rheumatology consultant down in the east of England. Our children were friendly. And he
And
knew
Chris,
that. Yeah.
sorry, just for the benefit of our listeners,
Ah,
what is a rheumatology consultant?
yes, you're right, Ammar. So it's all about our software, and this is how we started doing what we're doing. Rheumatology is a specialty that deals with predominantly rheumatoid arthritis, which is an inflammatory disease. Unfortunately, it's a number of different diseases, but broadly speaking, it's to do with rheumatoid arthritis, and it's incurable largely. You can alleviate the symptoms. It's a nasty disease, and my sympathy always goes out to people probably listening who live with that disease. And the reason we got into this was that this consultant clinician who deals with patients, supports patients who have these autoimmune diseases, prescribes their patients potentially toxic drugs. So these are drugs that can have really quite serious effects, and it might even result in hospitalization. And as a result, before they prescribe the drugs, clinicians need to know that the patient's blood tests are in order, that they're all okay, and they haven't got any abnormals or any what we call deteriorating trends. And the clinician said to me, I know, Chris, that you dabble with a bit of programming, because I was doing a bit of programming at the time. I had another company, we won't go into that. And he said, I'm sure there's a way that we could basically automate the process of me and my colleagues having to check paper forms every night when we're tired to make sure that our patients are stable before we re-prescribe them. Can you write me a program that goes and gets bits and pieces and does this work for me? And so I went away to my office and we worked on it for a few weeks and we came up with something. And as they say, the rest is history. So we still have customers now using the same system, although it has grown and become a lot more competent over the years, but still using the basic core requirement system for, like I said, 25 years, Ammar. So started in a garden shed, still going strong.
That's it. What a wonderful story. And highlight of that 25 years, Chris?
Gosh, highlights. So I think highlights have really been the way in which it's grown. I've got to say the biggest highlight of the lot is adopting the Beetroot brand, Ammar. That's if anybody wants a lesson in entrepreneurship, it's make sure you get your brand right. Make sure that you think about what you call your innovation. And I guess that applies to whatever innovation it may be, whether it's a new pair of shoes or a digital health system. That's number one highlight. We've had a lot of fun with Beetroot already, and we intend to do more. Another highlight is moving from our core software offering, if you want to call it that, the monitoring, into supporting cancer services. So we've got a big project underway again in the east of England where we were asked by an existing customer if we could do something to help cancer patients in a similar way. And I'm very pleased to say that that's something that we've been working on for quite a while. So yeah, there's another highlight. There have been others along the way, but I would say those are two significant highlights that I've enjoyed.
Amazing. And just picking up on that brand thing, because Jalf's a brand expert and he's a pioneer in the culinary world. So he gets this in abundance. So just very briefly on that that name for the company, how did you come up with that then, Chris?
Well, pacing up and down my kitchen with my business partner, who also happens to be my wife, Jane, who's been with me on this journey all the way through, pacing up and down one morning and ranting and raving about the horribly technical names that we'd given our software modules over the years and the difficulties that customers had in pronouncing it, and they always called it something different. And I had a little thought, Ammar, I've always been a fan of Apple, so I've got Apple equipment. And I think you know where this is going, don't you? And I'm not going to tell you the really boring joke. And I thought, Apple was such a silly name for computers. And I remember, I'm old enough to remember when apples were actually introduced, Apple computers were introduced into this country. And that it was just derision that, you know, how can a computer be called an apple? What a stupid name for it. Yeah, it really turned out bad, didn't it, Jeff? It really did turn out bad. So I thought, well, you know what? If it worked for Apple, then why can't it work for Beetroot? So let's just ditch the tacky names. We're starting to engage with patients more. Let's just give it a friendly name. How about that? What do you think, Jeff?
Excellent. Well, brilliant. And did you manage to do all the trademarks and things like that with a name?
Absolutely. So Beetroot is a registered mark in the UK and in the CE mark, not CE mark, in Europe as well. We even have, because we were doing some work in China a few years ago, even went to the trouble of registering Beetroot as a Chinese registered mark or trademark, Jeff. How about that?
Well, that's brilliant, because sometimes, you know, when the names are so good and also well known and common, obviously you may have come across opposition and things like that, but to have got that is brilliant, and that's obviously so important to give you that security moving forward and having the exclusivity to the name.
I'm so pleased to hear you say that, Jeff, because you know what? It's been always been an obsession of mine. Both Therapy Audit and Beetroot are registered marks. I think registered marks are really important. They're things to be respected, and it's always a little frustrating for me when, you know, perhaps people don't take them so seriously. But that's one of the reasons why I was so pleased to get Beetroot as a registered mark, because you're absolutely right. It protects us in a potentially, obviously, very competitive market, doesn't it? So we know that Beetroot is ours and that nobody else can take that name away. So it gives us a lot of confidence to invest in it.
Excellent.
Wonderful. Yeah. And conscious of time here, Chris, but we are, I suppose, we're keen to understand a little bit more around your greatest inspiration, but B, also, if you had a magic stick, what 3 things would you change in the world?
Oh gosh, yes. So I had to think about this a little bit. The inspiration wasn't too hard, because you're not going to be surprised to hear that the Apple brand has been a great inspiration to me for lots of reasons. I've followed it all the way through, Ammar, right from the moment the Macintosh first arrived. So Steve Jobs has got to be number 1 on inspiration, and I think everything about Steve Jobs, for me, represents what we ought to be. Wouldn't it be great if Beetroot was as big as Apple? But there's clearly not enough room for both of us, is there? I think Steve Jobs, because he was an inspirational leader, and he epitomized so much of what I think is brilliant about entrepreneurship. He had in common with today Elon Musk, you know, with Bezos and all these huge companies. And his whole ethos was not to fixate on the product, which is important, but to really understand the ethos of what Apple represents and what the organization represents and how it can change the world. And he did change the world significantly. Yes, he was in the right place at the right time. That's an important ingredient. But he still had the vision not to fixate solely on the product, but also to get out there and really evangelize the whole Apple, what turned into the Apple ecosystem. And I would add to that person as well, Nelson Mandela, for pure perseverance.
Amazing. Chris, we're going to run out of time very quickly.
Sorry about that.
So bear with me 1 second, because I'm going to mute the radio show and I will move them out so we can finish this interview, and we can at least get through and finish on a bit more about what's the future for Beetroot. And before you answer that, you know, there was a few other things that we wanted to hear more about. With your permission, we might just publish that in a written format or get you back on earlier, because we scheduled in 20 minutes. I'm conscious we only managed sort of 12, 13 of those in earnest. But tell us a future about Beetroot.
Yeah. Okay. So the future is that we want to develop further the work that we're doing in cancer and supporting cancer patients. Big topical subject, Ammar. You know, there are a lot of problems with waiting lists and getting people through. We need to automate that process, and we just want to extend what we offer out from clinicians to patients as well. So, big project in the Northeast at the moment where we've got 2 or 3 hospitals using our service. We're starting to move it into GP land as well, so in primary care, so GPs can benefit from it. And let's not forget about patients. They're all benefiting indirectly from what we do, but we want to start engaging with them through the Beetroot brand. So that means that they'll get Beetroot on their smartphone and it'll help them in managing their disease. What could be better?
Excellent.
Amazing. And to find out more, is there a website? Is there, if we've got GPs and clinicians and people interested?
Absolutely. Beetroothealth.com. That's where you need to go. And then there's videos, there's information, there's all you need to know about it there. So beetroothealth.com is the place to go, Ammar. That's wonderful. The place to be.
Excellent.
Thanks for joining us this morning, Chris. It's been a delight and a pleasure, and I look forward to catching up with you separately. But you've been listening to Ammar and
Jalf
live on our weekly radio show with our extra special guest, Chris.
Many thanks. My pleasure. Nice to meet you both again.
All the best.
Take care. Have a lovely weekend.
Cheers.
Bye. Bye.